Dear students, welcome back. This is the second part of our first lecture on Introduction to Anthropology. We'll be talking about holism and four fields of anthropology. What do we understand by anthropology? As American Anthropological Association defines holism is that anthropologists take a broad approach to understanding the many different aspects of human experiences, which we call holism. They consider the past through archaeology to see how human groups lived hundreds and thousands of years ago and what was important to them. They consider what makes up our biological bodies and genetics, as well as our bones, diet, and health. Anthropologists also compare humans with other animals, most often other primates like monkeys and chimpanzees, to see what we have in common with them and what makes us unique. So basically, when we talk about holism, it means the experience of human being as a whole, and it has four aspects according to American anthropologists. Now, when holism, we have to remember that this is very specific to American anthropology. The earlier American anthropologists like Franz Boas and others, what they did is that they tried to understand different groups of American Indians and their cultural practices, rituals, behaviors, and why and how are they so very different from one another. To understand that, what they did is that they looked at four aspects of their lives, and that has become a trait for American anthropologists and anthropology in general. Those four aspects are cultural anthropology, archaeology, linguistics, and biological anthropology. So when these four things combined, we can say that we are trying to understand or grapple human experience as a whole, or that is called holism. Now, what do we understand by cultural anthropology? Cultural anthropology is study of human society and culture. It is the subdiscipline that describes, analyzes, interprets, explains social and cultural similarities and differences. To study and interpret cultural diversity, cultural anthropologists engage in two kinds of activities. One is ethnography, and two is ethnology. What do we understand by ethnography? Ethnography actually provides an account of a particular group, community, society, or culture. During ethnographic fieldwork, the ethnographer gathers data that he or she organizes, describes, analyzes, and interprets to build and present that account, which may be in the form of a book or an article or a film. And then what is ethnology, on the other hand, examines, interprets, analyzes the result of ethnography, the data gathered in different societies. It uses such data to compare and contrast and to make generalization about society and culture. Looking beyond the particular to the more general, ethnologists attempt to identify and explain cultural differences and similarities, to test hypotheses, and to build theory to enhance our understanding of how social and cultural system works. Now we will go on to the second section, which is archaeology. What is archaeology? Archaeology tries to reconstruct, describe, and interpret human behavior and cultural patterns through material remains, such as grains, pots, tools, weapons, architecture, etc. Archaeological sites can be exposed or unexposed, buried underground, or under the sea. And what archaeologists do is that they try to figure out how and when these grains or pots or pans and tools or the remains have been used, and try to reconstruct the past. And they also try to understand, compare the lifestyle of different time and people's lived experiences. Now, third is linguistic anthropology. What do we understand by linguistic anthropology? linguistic anthropology, simply put, studies language in its social and cultural context, across space and over time. Some linguistic anthropologists also make inferences about universal features of language, linked perhaps to uniformities in the human brain. The fourth subfield of anthropology is biological or physical anthropology. Now, it sounds pretty straightforward, but it's not actually, if you think about it. Biological and physical anthropology explores human biological diversity across time and space. Biological anthropology can be further divided in five specialized fields. They are human evolution, as revealed by the fossil record, which we call paleoanthropology, human genetics. Human genetics actually maps out the changes and transformations that our predecessors had gone through and their genetic mapping. And through genetic mapping, they try to understand or recreate or restructure the transformation that we have been through. Third is human growth and development. Fourth is human biological plasticity. This one is interesting because it's not talking about the long-term evolution or adaptation that our bodies have gone through, but it's the immediate reaction of the body, the living body's ability to change as it copes with stress. So, such as heat, cold, altitude, etc. Now, fifth one is primatology, the biology, evolution, behavior, social life of monkeys, apes, and other non-human primates. We compare and contrast and see the differences, what we have gone through so far. Now I will explain relationship of anthropology with other discipline. Anthropology, because it's commonly misunderstood, or we have these questions that if anthropology is studying culture, then why it's different from sociology? And answer to that question would be that yes, our interests are very similar, but our birth is very different. I mean, sociology was born to study the industrial revolution and post-industrial revolution, and the societies, the changes that those countries and societies have gone through, whereas anthropology is, as I mentioned in earlier lecture, was born out of the colonial encounter. So anthropology was born to satisfy the need of the colonial masters, to help them to understand the native population, people who are not us, that means white and European, but non-European, non-industrial societies, people living in the non-industrial societies. So there is a difference between these two disciplines, and the time and the people who have actually led the path to understand the social reality of their time. So we are talking, the initial anthropology and sociology had a huge difference between two fields. And one looks at the institution now, as we see that the differences are not as pronounced as it used to be, because being an anthropologist, I've studied middle class, which is as contemporary as it can be, and which any sociologist would study as well. So, and also there is a difference in methodologies as well. I mean, what kind of methodologies we are using. As I say, that this lines are getting blurred as the fields are progressing. Similarly, anthropology and psychology, they're not the same thing. I mean, anthropology tries to understand human being, psychology also tries to understand human being, but anthropology looks at the externalities rather than internality. But of course, there are psychoanalytical school in anthropology which talks about the affect phenomena and other things that may sound or considered to be very internal, but mostly anthropology and psychology has one does or work with mind, and sometimes even if it's empirical, but certain abstract ideas, whereas anthropology talks about uh, it is also empirical, but it talks about the human externalities and the practices, rituals that we go through. Of course, there are, as I said earlier, that there are relationship and close tie with the psychoanalytical school, and that is one of the how you call it, the bridge between two disciplines. But we still are very distinct disciplines. Finally, anthropology and political science. Political science, as it states, it looks at the politics and the institution, political institution, organization, and the pattern of governmentality, governance, and others. Whereas anthropology do talk about all of this, but also initially and earlier anthropologists were focusing the non-industrial, non-Western societies where political system is seen as interconnected to the kinship system and other subsystems rather than studied on its own as a political system. But of course, again, as time passes, as anthropology has evolved, political science, there are many studies which is talking about matters that would be considered as a matter of political sciences, but has very slowly and gradually encroached in anthropology as well. We do talk about anthropology. I mean, anthropology has two distinctive stream as well. One is academic anthropology, and another one is applied anthropology. Academic anthropology talks about the ideas, development of the ideas, studying, understanding human experiences, whereas applied anthropology not only talk about the human experiences, but also they talk about the policies and things that can be done using this this findings, the data that and through analysis. So I will close, and I'll be seeing you on live sessions every Monday and Wednesday at 11, and we will be discussing things that we didn't understand from the slides, and I expect you would come up with the questions in the live sessions. And I will be also available during the consulting hour, and I will provide you the link, Google link, Google Meet link, which you can click and be part of the live sessions. Thank you very much.